Have you seen Yumia Liesfeld? Now you have. Absolute baby girl. Hi everyone. Recently Atelier Karia was announced and I am so stoked to see Atelier Yumia getting a direct sequel. Listen, I adore Atelier Yumia. It's one of my all-time favorite games and Yumia herself effortlessly slaughtered herself into my top 5 characters of all time. I adored it enough to make multiple videos, one of them being especially long. Anyway, following tradition, Gust hosted a livestream after the game's announcement, revealing more information. Safe to say, I have many thoughts. Before we dive in, spoilers for Atelier Yumia. Since Karia is a direct sequel, I can't really avoid talking about the previous game now, can I? There will be plenty of speculation as well, so that's why I'm warning you. Atelier Karia takes place 2 years after Atelier Yumia. Alidus is now undergoing something called the mana withering, and the website describes it as the mana declining. I guess that's a direct consequence of Yumia stabilizing all the mana on the continent. Speaking of Alidus, we're back, baby! It seems Karia and co are going back for another investigation. The Alidus pioneering team is alive and kicking after all this time. Although I thought it would have disbanded after the first expedition ended. I guess we'll learn more later. That being said, I have mixed feelings on us returning to Alidus. 1. It's cool that we're going back, because I felt there were a lot of unanswered mysteries yet to be solved. There's probably a millennium's worth of history here to dig into still. 2. While Alidus looks somewhat different, it is, at the end of the day, the same world as the previous game. After Tears of the Kingdom, a reused world leaves me a bit apprehensive. We've only seen Lignius and Sivash so far, so there's no telling if we actually get to explore the whole island. I think right now, I just don't see the point in journeying through Alidus for the second time. There's the argument of reused assets making development faster, I suppose. 3. One of my biggest hopes was that we could go to Ustella. If Atelier Karia is just Alidus and the underground dome, I'm probably going to be a bit disappointed. At least a little bit. Yeah, the dome does look really cool with an artificial sky and everything. It's going to be really interesting, I'm sure. Anyway, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. It's far too early to say anything as we've seen too little. The only party members we know so far are Karia, Servio, and Fina. The 3 remaining party members, assuming we have 6 playable characters like the previous game, are currently unknown. Yumia is returning as a mentor for Karia, which is super cool to see, but whether or not she's a playable character remains to be seen. I'll talk about Yumia more later, trust me, I have a lot to say. At the very end of one of the trailers, we see another character and they seem to be an axe wielder. My first reaction was to say Rutger, but I don't think this is him. The voice sounds very different, and while the hair color is somewhat similar, I'm just not sure. Yeah, not jumping the gun here, I don't think. On the topic of Rutger though, I would absolutely love to see the previous cast return in some way. Whether as party members, or just supporting cast. Personally, Victor and Isla are the ones I'd love to see return the most. Firstly, because I want to learn more about their noble origins, as you're given precious little in the first game, outside of a house name and some minor details. Or I guess, manor details. And secondly, because I want to see Yumia and Isla exploring their newfound friendship they forged at the end of the first game. Like, how are they doing as friends? They've surely had some time to deepen their bond. So I'm not asking for much, I just want to see some interactions that imply their relationship has grown or evolved since we last saw them. For example, Isla being responsible for Yumia's new outfit. She talked endlessly about wanting to design clothes for Yumia, and this could be a good opportunity. Having a better understanding of who Yumia is and what she is to Isla, I imagine she'd be able to make something that Yumia would truly appreciate. The new jacket is a modified version of her old one, so I'm keeping my hopes up. Speaking of, Yumia hasn't changed that much, but her new outfit is so gorgeous. You really get the vibe that she's a teacher or a professor or something along those lines. I noticed the red tufts in her hair is more prominent than before, intertwined into her ponytail, which I think is wonderful. Another thing to note is that Yumia is now wearing her jacket on top of her shoulders like a cape, which is badass, first and foremost, but to me, it signifies that she's grown since we last saw her. In the first game, Yumia was meek and soft-spoken. She was severely lacking in the confidence department due to bullying and verbal abuse from her peers, plus other fun trauma damaging her sense of self. Ever since childhood, she's been hiding behind her bangs, which cover most of her face. And later on, she wears a big puffy jacket to further hide in. So the jacket now being on top of her shoulders, she is secure in herself. I was hoping her bangs would be swept to the side now, just for the cherry on top, but I understand why they would keep them. It's a pretty core aspect of her character design after all. The expedition ribbon that was on her shoulder is now used as a hair tie, which is also a cool detail. I also couldn't help but notice that she has the replica of Flammy hanging on her belt. Which is cute, but definitely hits right in the feels, dude. If it's just a replica, it either means Yumia still isn't adept enough at alchemy to create her own, or she decided not to recreate Flammy in order to not be stuck in the past, as that's a big part of her character arc in the previous game. Additionally, the white bird given to her by Irene is also absent, but she does have a pin of it on her chest pocket, so we're all good. By the way, if you're interested in hearing me talk more about Yumia in depth, I did do an hour-long character analysis on her in the past. I like her a normal amount, don't worry about it. Very curious to see what she's like 2 years later, although I'm sure certain characteristics will have stayed the same. From one main character to another, let's talk about Karia, shall we? I want to come out swinging, like, immediately. Based on what we've seen so far, and what we learn in Atelier Yumia, I think Karia could be a homunculus, or a mutant, or some experiment in that vein. I know I'm far from the only one who thinks this. Karia eating alchemical items doesn't look out of place if she's made up of mana. There's also the lines about Karia not knowing what or who she is, only being able to recall her name. In Atelier Yumia, Nina was a homunculus implanted with the memories of the person she was imaged after, leading to identity issues and other things. Karia, on the other hand, could be a homunculus without memories. Maybe someone wiped them, or maybe she's just a person with amnesia. But the fact that she can eat bombs and other items is the biggest clue, and it's what gave me this train of thought. That plus her shape-shifting depending on what was consumed. Yeah. They also showed her falling into a cauldron, cutting away right before we see what happens, and I doubt they would show that if it wasn't significant in some way. Anyway, thanks for coming to my Karia homunculus theory. Let's move on. I don't have much to say in terms of gameplay. I think it looks good. Knowing Gus, it's going to be more of the same, with quality of life improvements and innovations where it's needed. As you know, I loved Atelier Yumia, so I'm very excited to have more. Both combat and synthesis looks more complex, and frankly that's all I need to know. I want to be able to discover most of it on my own when it comes out. I do have my hopes though. I want to know more about Yumia's parents. Her father didn't even get his name mentioned, and he died before the game's events even begun. From what I understand, Irene disappeared, and is just presumed dead. A gravestone has been raised, but I don't think Irene herself was ever found. It's something that I thought was going to be a big plot point in the previous game, so I kept it in the back of my head the whole way through. I thought perhaps Irene was taken by Vesper because of her abilities, like how Corleones would often compliment Yumia. Clearly, they needed people who were adept at handling mana. Maybe the Liesfeld family has some ties to Aladus. Alchemy did originate there after all. Speaking of Irene, while it's implied that Yumia regains her memories of her through Flammy during the final battle, I'd love to have it confirmed. Yumia returning to her grave post-credits is probably good enough, but, you know. Again, if we end up going to use Stella, I want to know more about Victor and Isla. Maybe we can see how their home is coming along in the reconstruction, or, you know, see their family. There's something about the idea of Yumia being introduced to their parents that I really like. Couldn't tell you why. If I recall correctly, Lenia's clan, the Flume clan, is located in Ustella somewhere. I would love to see that as well. And it's been 2 years, so Lenia probably has grown taller since we last saw her. Of course I want to see the goat, Erhard, again. He might still be supervising the pioneering team. Maybe Rutger still lives with them too. I also wonder what Nina is up to nowadays. The party did talk a lot about splitting up after the first Aladis expedition, but I hope they have stayed in touch. Also, before I forget, what's the deal with Licht? If memory serves, he came to Aladis to find a cure for his people? And once he did, he just left the island to go back? I'd like some follow-up on this, if at all possible. It had me so curious. Anyway, I think that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed my Atelier Karia rambles. Are you excited for the Atelier Karia? Yes? What are your hopes for the game? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and take care.